Hi, and welcome to the FX Podcast. I'm John Montgomery. Our guest this week is Fabrizio Baeza. He's VFX supervisor from DNEG, and he's here to talk about work done for the film Heads of State. This time, Mike decided to do things a bit differently, and the guys, instead of discussing a lot of different things, concentrate solidly on the Air Force One attack sequence in a lot of detail, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. So let's go ahead and cross that conversation now.
So thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
We wanted to just see if we could do a deep dive on this attack sequence on Air Force One, because I think so many people, we read like this. I don't know, how many shots were in the whole film that your team worked on?
It's like 250, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, well, let's just take this one sequence and then just kind of dig into it, because I think it'd kind of be fun. And also, a lot of those things we skim over these days because we go, oh, you just did that with computer graphics, or you just did that with comp. But actually, every one of those problems is not a one-button press kind of way to get something done.
Yeah, it involved a lot of things, yeah, especially in a sequence like this one. Yeah.
Okay, so starting, what we see on screen, was that very tightly mapped out in previs before you started, or was it an evolving sequence?
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting thing. It's very evolving. We start the show like very early in the game. We did a handful of shots of tests just to see the cinematography, how the camera lenses, because with that aerial battle, the lens is very important to get the right depth in shots. And it proved a lot of challenges. We thought we solved the problem with like a handful of shots, and then they went shooting. And then when it comes back to us, very first rough edit, we just jump in right away, just do the assets, like the first one is like a giant piece of assets. We treat it like a digital. If you look at the assets, it's like we have every panel of the plane there. And it's very, very, very detailed. The Air Force One and the Illusion the other day. So we went ahead and create those two planes. But then what started to happen, when we drop the giant plane with all the details, we have to move cameras a lot to create speed, sense of depth, and change lenses in a shot-by-shot basis. Sometimes because we treat giant assets like very, very big, like the Air Force One with a very small drone. It doesn't scale properly. So we need to give the audience what they want. It's like a lot of speed, a lot of breakthrough, like the dogfight sequence with the drone. And then we had to change a lot of stuff. And as soon as we drop everything into the rough edit, we look at, we need more tweaks. And then it starts to be really fun. So yeah, we need to move drones here and there, animation, choreography, the drones, everything's choreographed for the camera. So it's very, very tough. That is the fun.
Okay, well, let's work our way through it. And I went through it like shot by shot, and I thought about everything. And I was like, oh my God, there's a lot to get through here, even though like in one sense, like I'm sure you came back and used new techniques again, but let's start with how much you had to work with. So what was on set? What was able to be filmed on set? Like how much of an Air Force One set did you have?
Zero. We have on the takeoff, we have just one shot, is the Air Force 20, the first shot, when you have the Cadillac for the presidential coming to the airplane and you have the review of the plane. That's not Air Force One. That's just another plane. We just put our assets there just to have the sense of scale. After this, everything is CG, every single thing is CG. So yeah.
Okay, so inside the plane, did you have a set that was on a gimbal or a motion base?
Yeah, inside of the plane we have some sort of a gimbal. We have to complement the set because the set is very small. Usually one room of the plane, we have to complement back there and in front. A lot of times we have to develop all the stairs just going to the cockpit. On the fight sequence, there was a lot of complements that I had to do on the subsequent rooms, the adjacent rooms. But besides of this, the interior wasn't a big problem besides of one or two shots. The real problem was the outside.
So in any sort of plane sequence like this, the plane is obviously up above the cloud layer. So there's very strong light coming in from outside. And you had two problems there, I imagine. One is, of course, you had to like balance that. But the other problem is during the course of the event, the light is having to shift in the room because the plane is doing so much movement. If the light always came in at the same angle of the windows, you wouldn't sell it. So did that just involve like practical moving the lights on the set, or did you have to do stuff in post?
In post, we have one shot that was a little bit of movement from the set, but it creates a lot of flare. And that creates a lot of problems because I have to connect all the flare, do all the CG work and put back the flare on top. It wasn't fun. So we decided to go ahead and do everything in CG. Just why that modulation creates a huge, how can I say, a huge glue for the frame. It's very, very, very nice. But from the beginning of the sequence, as they take off, from the destruction, everything's different. So everything evolves. The cloudscape's different. The sky is different. The movement of the clouds are different. The type of the clouds are different. And of course, the modulation is different. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So in terms of what was happening, the clouds outside that you're putting a digital plane into, is the clouds sort of a plate photography, or was the entire cloud environment CG?
Yes, every single cloud is a CG cloud. Every single one. Was a lot of work. That the cloudscape in the sky in the show, they are like narrative elements. So they are very key to the show to understand the sequence, because you need to understand the layer of clouds that we are above the clouds. As soon as you rise, you have different density, different type of clouds, different grouping of clouds. And as soon as you start to come down, we need to feel the same kind of switch. So we have to build tons of clouds, CG clouds, variety of densities, and placement, hand placement. Because again, when you scatter the clouds, it doesn't make sense. You lose perspective after like 5,000 kilometers. You just completely lose perspective in the sky. So we have to tighten up everything together. And at the end, there's a section of the clouds, every section of the cloud, like closer-ish to the planes. Everything was hand done. So, yeah.
It seemed like the clouds were very handy in helping you get speed, but also orientation, because without clouds, I don't know sort of how the plane is tilting. Is the plane tilting or the camera tilting? Once I have clouds in there, I can sort of see what's going on relative to one to the other.
Yeah, you're completely correct. That's exactly the point. That was our first question when we started the show. Okay, the planes are moving with the sky. There's no relationship of speed because there's nothing passing by. So we need to have the right clouds, the right density to see, and the right density closer to the planes to also see the plane, to give the audience like a clear plane, but also see the speed. So it was a lot of tests. We did like hundreds and hundreds of tests until we get it right. And once, okay, now it's working, and dropping shots, great, of course, because the drone is way smaller than their first one. So every cloud that's closer to the drones, they need to have some sort of different level. And again, I don't even start to talk about motion blur because of the relative scale. It changes everything.
Okay, so now we've got the cargo plane sort of opens its rear gate, and you basically have got a combination now of like CG, exterior environments, and just CG of the actual drone launching rocket thing, right?
Yes, exactly. The drone launcher, everything CG besides of Alexei, the Russian bad guy, his plate, but we also mess with him in CG. But besides of Alexei, yeah, exactly.
What did you have to do to him?
Yeah, it's like usually repo, because we need to fit a drone launcher, and we need to have the correct amounts of drones to launch, because we have like, if you count from the beginning to the end, we did like real. We have a real number of drones shooting. It's not like just movie magic. We try to base on a real deal. So we have a specific drone launcher. We create everything, and then we have to scooch a little bit here and there because the Illusion needs to be Illusion is the cargo plane. It needs to be a little bit bigger, so we had to move everything, and we had to repo Alexei shot by shot.
Yeah, because there are waves of drone attaches effectively, and those waves actually even come at Air Force One from sort of different directions and stuff. So I get that. So that makes sense. Okay, so now you're shooting blue screen primarily, I presume, because it's blue sky outside, yeah?
Yeah. That's exactly it. It was a blue screen, some blue screen from Alexei, and that's it. We have like a very small piece of sets from the Illusion, very, very small. And we're talking about like a handful of shots. Everything else is just full CG.
So how did you go about getting those exposures to work? Because you're very high up, you're opening cargo doors. Like, it works from a cinema point of view, and that's all that matters. But of course, at some level, trying to balance very bright exteriors with interiors and the audience to read both is just an inherent problem.
Yeah. Again, another time you're completely correct. It was a fight between us and us. Every time that, okay, let's do for realistic exposure, and we do the exposure poll, and it doesn't work. It's like everything's so bright, and as you know, we need to see the clouds outside to feel the speed and to have a relationship between the planes and the drones. So we just play a lot of stuff like pushing and pulling. we end up like knocking out two stops of some of the plates just to make sure that we have a good amount, and our exposure pool was not real. We've done to make the audience look at what we need to look. So a lot of times you see we have a small amount of vignettes here and there, and with exposure pool, sometimes it's just pull 2 or 3 elements just to make sure that the audience drives see what we need them to see.
So he's holding a kind of an iPad-y device that's controlling stuff. Similarly, in the cockpit, and then again at the parachute sequence at the end, there's a control panel that they're working. Were any of those practical, or were you doing screen replacements on everything?
There's screen replacement and everything. Yeah, they have one shot, they have practical, but just still for us to see how the element looks like in the real plane. And then we just make something just to drop there to make sure that you have the drones flying, you see the radar, everything there. And he has to press the Air Force One so the drones can attack. So yeah, everything we just did it to make sure that everybody has some sort of fun in the movie.
So in the parachute sequence, he's pressing buttons obviously on the panel. I guess I'm always interested to know, like, does the actor naturally get the right point on the screen, or is it like that's where his thumb landed, so let's put the button that he needs to press under where his thumb happened to be?
That's pretty much it. He pressed it there. He has some sort of guidance, but it's very off, and we have to mess with the screen to give some sort of, you see at the bottom row, even the buttons, we have to change everything just to make sure that when he presses the right place.
Okay, so the drone attack is happening, and there is now we're sort of halfway through. There's an explosion on the side of the plane on camera right, which causes a huge air loss, which has, I'm going to call it a 0G effect, in the sense that people are like horizontal, being sucked kind of towards it. Was that, I mean, at the moment that it happens, you've got both of our hero actors, the president and the prime minister, running towards camera. There's a huge fireball behind them. I'm assuming there was no huge fireball, but I mean, I'm wondering like how much you had something on set, and also was there a huge amount of rig work there? Because I mean, how else are these guys hanging sideways?
Yeah, there's rig work for John Cena and Idris Elba. Okay, they got suspended on the next shots, not in the explosion. The explosion just jump. They have padding at the bottom. Of course, they had to recreate all the ground. Of course, there's no explosion behind. We did everything. There was the biggest shot of the show, the movie. It was very hard to do. It's a very close explosion with like characters in front of the camera. We had to do all the bounce lights, as you know, like debris everywhere. We have screens, everything is reflected. So reflections of whatever we're doing in CG is very complex. And the shots, when we get this sucking out of the air, the difference of pressure, it's very, very, very nice. We have like the rigs, again, for John and Idris to get suspended. There's all cleanup that we had to do, plus all the ground padding and debris flying.
And I presume it's your debris, right? It's CG debris.
Yeah. It's all simulation. We try to do in, how can I say, most grounded to reality. It was really hard because of the speed to see, okay, my God, the motion blur is like it's going to be one frame. We try a lot of times. And then at the end, we finish up, okay, let's use the real speed, but just tweak the motion blur by eye, just to get this trick, because we need to see it. If you don't get the audience, the debris will not make any sense. And it was like...
There's that explosion in the room. There's some really nice explosions of the engines going up. And I was wondering, for those external explosions, how much you had a problem with that being red? Because you've got smoke coming off them, you've got a fireball, but also it's in high, bright sun, and you have to have a yellow flame ball. And so getting that to read, which, it does on screen for the audience, but that's actually, it's a hard sim and it's a hard comp, I would have thought.
Yeah, it's very, very, very hard comp, because when you start to comp those things, okay, the explosion would be white, of course, because of the real exposure of the camera. But we have to play a lot. It will be a lot of push and pull, as I told you. The exposure on that show of every element was done for the audience to see and feel the thing. Sometimes we have to pull back a little bit more just to feel the yellow coming from the explosions, and sometimes just jump a little bit more of the white just to feel the power. And sometimes we knock down the smoke to see more of the fire. Sometimes more smoke to not see the fire, but see the messiness of the debris with the smoke. Yeah, everything was like, as I said, it was hand placed just to make sure that it looks correct. After the first nice simulation, we had hand placed a lot of stuff.
So was there like, a Houdini sim? Was that what were your pipeline tools for I mean, I
Yes.
presume it was a nuke comp, was it?
Yeah, it was new comp. We did simulations, have my layouts and animations, and yeah. But
What were you rendering in?
Yeah, we renting Solaris. Yeah, that's what we did. Yeah. We started the show when we started the show 2023. We started the show went to a hiatus, and then we picked it back. We started showing Clarice, but we discontinued Clarice.
Yeah,
So
you
we
moved
had,
from Clarice, didn't you? Yeah.
yeah, it hurt the show tremendously because we had to rebuild everything. Because when you look, everything was pretty good in Clarice. Again, 10 years using Clarice, we pretty much knew from the heart what I had to do.
Yes.
But at some point, when we replicate the asset, it doesn't look the same. Okay, it doesn't look the same at all. Even with the same angle, even with all the layers working properly, looks like the light transmission is not going through the layers at the same time in the same way that this with Clarice. So it looks different.
Do you put that down to the way that Houdini's render is so good with volumetrics, or?
Yes, but that comes to a catch. Houdini is pretty good with volumetrics, like 1 or 2 bounces. Wouldn't have the explosion. You need like 4 or 5. It is not good. It is not good.
Not good because it's expensive to render, or not good because you didn't like the visuals?
Yeah, it really is. It's really expensive. Visually, it gives this sort of noise, and we have some noise in the deep channels that was impossible to get rid of. So we have to render every single AOV for the deep channels in a separate layer, just to have control and not noise.
When you're saying the deep, you mean the deep comp like layers? Yeah. So you've got the volumetric deep comp, so you can play stuff in it, and then. But presumably you're using some kind of AI denoiser, right? Some kind of like
yes. We have internal backup denoising going on. It's pretty good, but what's the problem in our show? Our show is heavy detail oriented, so we need to see every single part of the explosion. Denoise takes out that section. For some things, actually use the noise. We use the noise in our favor sometimes. We just get to the render point to say, okay, that noise is pretty good for that thing. So we use the noise. Sometimes we use the denoise version, but a lot of times we also use the noise version because it works in our favor. So it was a little bit of balancing, visual balance.
So joining our heroes again, in the executive sort of suite, there's a hole in the wall, of course, but there's also a barrel roll that's caused by these external explosions of the engines. So I'm guessing that was set on a giant wheel, because I don't know how else you'd have them like flying around that way. Is that how it worked?
Yeah, how it worked. They create that set, but everything else besides of the sets, everything that's falling, even the chairs, some of the chairs are CG. Just make sure they don't have stuff falling inside of the characters on top of the characters. They have set up for the turning. Yes.
I mean, we all like sort of want to believe that anything's possible, but I mean, even small amounts, like a pen could take out an eye of somebody, exactly. and injuring an actor is like completely not an option. So you're basically giving us all of those sort of references, but their basic body dynamics, because that's what sells it, right? It's their body dynamics as they fall against walls and stuff. That really sells the shot. How much did you have to do body doubles though? I mean, not for this scene, but sort of generally, or I presume for the parachute sequence and stuff, you had to do body doubles of everybody?
Yeah, parachutes, we have all doubles, as you see. From the parachute, as soon as they jump, doubles.
By the way, heads up, like I think that points to the editor, because that feels like a one-er when he pushes them out of the door. There's actually an edit in there. But when I was looking at it, I thought, that's one shot, that's clever. And then I went, wait a second. There is one tiny cut in there, which seemed to be a huge bonus for you in terms of the handover between actors and digital.
I agree with you 100%. The edit for the movie is special.
It's good, isn't it? Yeah.
And it's very, 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 very dynamic, very good. Again, it creates us a problem because every time I have to go back to do some adjustments. Okay, let's make it more dynamic, but it's really good to see it. Towards the end, it's just really good.
So getting back to our room that's rotating. So in addition to it being a rotating set and you adding stuff, you had to add what's outside the hole in the room, right? And this is a plot point because they're jumping over that hole. Again, I was thinking it's one thing to put something, I would say as a big compliment, you guys really nailed getting the right defocus outside a door. Like when they're going for the parachute shot and stuff, clearly it's a problem not dissimilar to someone driving in a car and you have a window beside them. And they often look really fake because, you just sort of say, oh, hang on, the depth of field looks wrong and it just looks like but in this, you nailed it. But that was triply difficult, I would have thought, because the whole world is spinning outside the hole in the wall, as it were.
Yeah, if you start thinking, you see, you're gonna get, oh my God, okay, that's pretty clever. That's not real, but that looks good. It's pretty nice. But yeah, you're completely correct. As I said, that show, the lenses and the cameras are very, very, very special. Like a shots, we have to do a specific thing for the shots, as you know, because of depth of fields. Specifically, focus the shallow focus in some time because we have like a giant assets,
Yeah.
and we have small doubles, and we need to get that relationship right. The only way to get that
What was
relationship
it
right.
shot on? What was the camera like?
Yeah, we have artists. We have a lot of cameras, but
Right.
internally we have to do some custom camera inside of Maya just to get that stuff right, just to get our proper travel, because we have the shallow of the focus and also pairing with the motion blur with the giant assets. It's like it's a mixture of both. If you do just one, it's not right. It doesn't look right at all, and you don't feel right. And also in comp, there's a lot of stuff that you have to milk some sort of element to feel it a little bit more distance. And again, shot by shot was straight.
In film school, they would tell you to shoot a chart to get the distortion of the lens. What did you have to do to get marrying between your digital lenses and the real? Like, how far did you have to go in terms of shooting anything or calibrating to lenses?
So what we did, we have an internal lenses calibration that we choose the lenses, and it comes with our calibration inside of Nuke. Okay, that's inside of pipe. But for the show, just to choose between 150 options that we have, it's very difficult for a show like this. So we need to start right. When we start the show, we had some, I think it was 12 per selections until we see everything, it feels right. And then it's for Ilya, for the director, to choose what he wants to see. We keep progressing with Ilya and Ray's visual effects visual effects supervisor from the production side. As soon as we look together, we narrow down to like 6 or 7, and then like shot by shot, and then like shot by shot. And every shot there was a small change. Okay, it's like here's 18. No, we need to do 19. No one's going to mount a 19 on top of drones. We had to do it to make it look right, and then we just change very small amounts, even if it's not real per se. But again, we had to do it to make sure that the audience understands.
Yeah, as they're fleeing to the back of the plane, I noticed something else that no one gives anyone much credit for, but there was some really believable camera shake. Now, you've discussed depth of field, you discussed motion blur, but what's selling a bunch of those shots is the camera shake. I presume that wasn't in camera, but it looks really good.
Yeah. So again, another thing that was hand-done shot by shot. We have first pass of motion, the motion camera we try with just CG when we start the show, just to test, to see how it looks. It looks really good. But towards the end, we had to split. Some shots we had to do full CG. Some shots was just 2D shake, just because we have more control looking at everything. And sometimes we have a 2D, and okay, we have more time, so let's pick it up what we have. Let's export the curves. Let's bring back to our CG camera and re-render with the CG once approved. So it was a mixture of both. It was like just looking at shot by shot. But some of the very giant shots, as you look into the tail of the plane when the plane is descending, it's a real motion blur. It's a real motion blur with a camera shake, working together, because we changed the motion blur.
Yeah, it really does change the motion blur, because can be often a vertical move on a horizontal shot, as it were, which is really, especially in a high dynamic range where you've got those highlights, and those highlights are going to stay solid. And
exactly,
otherwise, if you didn't, the highlight would get distributed over a number of frames and drop from a peak white, and you don't get a pingy highlight. A pingy highlight is always, even when it's smeared, going to still be one all the way across, right? Like it's still going to be very sharp.
If you watch the sequence again, you can clearly see the ping highlights on the place that we want. That's exactly correct.
Okay, so now they've got to the end of the bit with the parachutes and stuff. Along the way, there's been a bunch of things like flares, like knife attacks, like everything else. I was wondering in those, how much did you have to put in CG knives or whatever, simply because it's just not, even though they're probably great actors and possibly stunt guys, but you just sort of don't want the risk of somebody being hurt.
Exactly. Insurance company doesn't deserve a lot of money. So what we did, of course, CG knives, we have the CG knife. We have a very small practical stuff close to the hands. but even this we have to change for the knife. There's some face replacement that they have to do when he's running horizontally to try to execute the president, and then just pull
that earlier sequence before the Secret Service guy comes down and takes him out. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's face replacements because of the stunt double and the flare ECG. As you probably know, we have something practical on set just to have the light touching the guy there. But yeah, besides this, it's all CG. Again, the flare is very close to camera, so even the sparks of the flare looks okay. It's very simple. It's just not simple. Even the fire you have in the parachutes there, everything was like CG. Fire, smoke coming towards the hallway.
So was there an actual flare going into the parachute set, or
just one shot? Just in one shot, we have a practical one, but we had to take it off just to pull back CG because it was LED. It's not a real flare. It was just an LED flare just to have the bounce light. But yeah.
Apart from anything else, I mean, you might say, well, why don't you just use a real flare? But I mean, the reset on going for a second take, if you flare up and stuck it in a practical bunch of stuff, is going to be quite an ordeal. Speaking of killing people, you killed off the pilots in a direct drone hit. I just wanted to discuss those because, again, it would seem on paper, well, that's pretty easy, right? Drone hits ship, one frame, and it's a fireball. But I'm guessing it was slightly more than that.
Way more than that. Exactly everything in that show, as I said at the beginning, when you look, okay, that looks pretty easy. It looks pretty easy. But when you start to do it, again, it's a box. It's a box full of knives. If you have to touch, you're gonna cut yourself. So basically, what we did, we have the plates and have the plates say when we explode, the drone will come. We have to animate the drone come. There's a special scale for the drone in that shot, just to be believable once it breaks the glass. Okay. There's also a question for us. Okay, the drone's going to explode. We have to pull the chairs. We have explode stuff. And if you go frame by frame, we have that stuff. We have the chair breaking coming towards camera. We have the fire entering on the top section of the cockpit. Everything, the glass breaking, falling down. I know it's very, very quick. But if you go frame by frame, it's all there. We use a mixture of simulation and 2D stuff for the chair. We could move a little bit the chair into 2D out of the way. And for the glass knocking down from the cockpit, everything was done in the simulation. And even the reflections of the explosions are there. So yeah, and the CG explosion is pretty big. It's like in camera, very 90s. Yeah.
Very nice. Hey, was it a 4K finish? I presume it was.
Yes.
So how big was your team on this? Like thinking about that sequence for a second, and sort of how long was that team working on that sequence?
Yeah, that show was brutal. Just because we started and had to stop. And when we picked it back was around end of April, and we didn't have time. It's like, okay, the time that we had before is just gone. We lost like 8 months of the show because there's some of the reshootings, some of the stuff that was happening on the actors, the youth, you know pretty much what was happening.
So just to be clear though, this sequence with the actors, was that all shot in one, or was there pickup shots?
Or it was shot in one, yeah.
Okay, good. So you had that as okay. And then that was turned over to you, sort of how long between them turning it over and...
Was April. What they have this end of April, beginning of May. And we start working at sequence, like really working at sequence. We're talking about last week of May. So,
and when did you deliver?
That was fully delivered 22 of February.
And so how big was your team on that? Like
the whole team for not that sequence, but for the entire show in DNEG was around 600 people from roto, camera, track, layout, all shebang was around 600. But again, people come and go. But at some point, we had like a pretty solid 150 guys in the show at the same time. Because again, this is just massive. Yeah.
There are so many, I guess, unsung heroes of VFX in this. Like we've skipped over camera tracking, for example, which is like not easy.
That show is very special. Again, that show doesn't look like, but everything that show has some sort of a speciality to it. Again, we're doing that stuff since '96, so almost like 30 years. But incredibly, that show, you just have a sequence of planes fighting. It should be easy. It was not. We faced everything here. It was fun.
Well, I really appreciate you taking us through it because I do think that the artists involved deserve credit because it's sort of, I think the audience can think somehow that these days it's really easy and it isn't. And it's a lovely crafted sequence and a lovely action sequence.
For sure. It's not. We have like, even our GFX supervisors have two, uh, and they're very, 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 very good. And they provide a lot of solutions to problems because we face a giant problem in our show. Okay, we have to do something that usually is not done. With the cameras look like this and giving our night feelings, everything should be very close. We need extra details, 4K. Even the cloud needs to be CG. We need to pass through a CG cloud a lot of times, which is not easy at all to give like the sense of speed that we need for the show.
Oh yeah, I mean the Sims team on the clouds, on the explosions, on the then there's a gorgeous shot we skipped over. I'm going to give it credit now, where they deploy from Air Force One a series of like countermeasures, and I mean like that is just a gorgeous sim, just a beautiful shot.
Yeah, it's called Angel of the Death. I'm not joking. Yeah, it's a countermeasures for the Air Force One. It's a special pattern. We did it like for you. If you can research, it's called Angel of the Death. So it's there. We replicate 100% how it looks in real time, and that stuff is inside of the Air Force One. So if you look at that angel, like the turbulence stuff, everything, that simulation is very, very, very special for you, the director. So we had to replicate that stuff properly for him to be happy. When he look, oh my God, that's what I need to see.
Well, next time you bump into the sim team that did that, please pass on my sincere, heartfelt. I was just very impressive and greatly. You really appreciated the subtlety of the way that looked because it was a good looking shot. It was also a powerful moment in the story, of course, but it was just a really nice looking shot.
Beautiful. If you look, it's beautiful. It's destruction, but it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, thanks so much for taking through it. We really appreciate it.
Thank you too, Mike. My pleasure. See ya.
Well, thanks, Fabrizio, for taking the time to chat with us. I really enjoyed hearing about that sequence in a lot of detail. Now, those of you who are listening to this podcast, I just want to remind you once again, if you didn't know it already, that we do have video versions of the podcast available for most of these episodes, and that's available on our YouTube channel. So head on over to YouTube and subscribe to it, and you'll be notified whenever we release a new episode on video. Well, that's it for this ep. For Mike Seymour, I'm John Montgomery. Thanks for listening to or watching this FX podcast.